Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
No, none taken.
That is right, none taken. I am the Movie Moron. This is the Movie Moron podcast. I am your host, Easton Moore.
Hello there.
Hello there. And then with us, as always, is our all-time guest, Tristan.
Would you be married to two horrible old men today?
No!
And then with us to both of our right is somebody who's been on the podcast before for just one movie, Glass Onion?
Just once before,
okay.
Yeah.
Brandon.
Oh. Be my guest.
Be my guest.
I'll take it.
But yeah, you've been on before, so you've kind of said some of your favorite movies
I have.
before. So I'm going to throw you a curveball here, and just ask what's your favorite genre of movie? That way they just hear something.
That's so hard. I don't know that. So I don't know that I have a particular favorite genre. I will say that I find myself coming back to horror more than most other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll for the sake of brevity, I'll say horror.
Okay. And a follow-up that may or may not be easier or harder, depending on how much you know. Favorite director?
Favorite director? That's just not fair. Okay, so...
You could say a few if you can't pin down one, but...
I can't. I'm going to be honest. So I'm gonna name a few. Hitchcock I found in high school and had a really big impact on me. Kurosawa... Huge impact on me. Stanley Kramer, I would say, is another personal favorite. Judgment at Nuremberg and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner are a couple of his that I'm a big fan of. And Here at the Wind is very good. I'll cut myself off there.
Okay. Well, that's three. That was three. So, okay. Well, there you go. There's a little information about Brandon, our guest. And for this movie specifically, we are going to be reviewing Sisu. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I don't remember the movie saying it, so...
I don't remember it either.
Yeah.
That's the way I've been pronouncing it.
Okay, so if I don't speak either Norwegian or Russian... Finnish?
Maybe?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever language it's originated from, this word, if I'm not saying it right, I'm sorry to you. But we're reviewing who was the... Yeah, scatterbrained. But we came in very right as the movie was starting.
Trevor said we didn't miss anything.
I know. Yeah, yeah. Was this an A24 film?
It was not.
Okay. For some reason, I had that in my mind, but I was like, this does not feel like one at all.
It was not.
Okay. No. But yeah, it's just a new action movie. I don't really know anybody in it, but it's got a lot of hype over the last couple weeks, so we decided to pick that for today because there wasn't a whole lot. There were some other things out, but we were all very interested in this. So we'll just start off with general thoughts, so don't get into spoilers too much. But how did you like Sisu, Brandon?
I did not like Sisu. I thought that this was... I won't, like you said, I won't get into spoilers. I thought it was clunky and awkward, and I wanted... You know, my first big... There was a moment where I realized that I didn't like it, and I was just very sad because I really liked another movie that this director did called Rare Exports, which is a wild Santa Claus movie that I won't spoil for anybody. Okay. It's very, very good. But I came in with such high hopes. I was like, oh, the guy who did Rare Exports did a Nazi killing movie. Like, how could you not love it? And there was a point about, I don't know, a quarter of the way through where I thought I should be having so much more fun than I am right now, and I'm pretty bummed. I feel like the no fun police. I'm the guy that didn't like the big, loud Nazi killing action movie, but that's where I'm at.
That's where you're at.
That is where I'm at.
We appreciate the honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Tristan.
My turn.
Are we going to have double the honesty?
Yeah, I didn't really like it either.
Yeah.
I'm more of a person, take John Wick, for example. If you're going to give me action, I need to know a little bit about you. Like,
sure.
I want to know why he's like this. And I guess they explained it a little bit.
I mean, kind of.
Like they touched on it.
Yeah.
They touched the cheese.
You guys just don't appreciate the importance stoicism. Okay,
Oh,
Maybe.
is that it?
Maybe.
this
Is that the philosophy for every character in this movie? Because if so, they succeeded.
yes, no. This movie is very much. We want to create something that feels extremely stoic.
Yeah.
There are several scenes that are drawn out just for the stoic nature of, like, this is gonna be a thing. This is gonna be a moment.
Yeah.
And like, we're just gonna have this
And
still
that
shot.
sound, that song sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got really annoying.
I love the sound, but
I actually that is one of the few things about,
Yes.
about the movie I did.
It just happened so much for me.
I do
I
think.
just couldn't handle it
Yeah,
anymore.
I think the stoic shots got a little much.
Yeah.
The sound I loved, and I even like stoic shots, but I think this movie's an hour and 32 minutes.
Yeah.
So when you've got like 12 stoic shots, it does get a little much, especially when they're pretty deep into the movie too. Like usually those kind of stuff kind of start
just
and then
sort of like slow lingering shots on him.
Yeah, and
Maybe feeling something. Your guess is as good as mine.
more general thoughts, Tristan?
More general thoughts. I liked how short it was.
Oof.
What? You didn't like it?
No. I just thought, like, what a scathing critique. I loved how short it was.
I just get so excited when there's like hour and a half movies.
Yes,
because
and we're
Yes.
saying this. She even said that before we watched it. She
Yeah.
was like, "I'm so excited, like that this movie's an hour and a half. Like we're gonna get
actually-
in,
yeah.
we're gonna get out." I don't know how excited she was for it. I don't know really what she
I
knew.
didn't know any.
I'm pretty sure
pretty
we had
neutral.
seen a trailer in theaters, but I don't think you really connected the two.
There was one before the fourth John Wick, so you
Yeah.
might have seen it then. Yeah.
I saw multiple because
Gotcha.
we're in the theater every week, so we usually see quite a
Yeah.
few.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think this trailer was before Super Mario Brothers, but
Probably not. Not this one. I'm sorry. I keep cutting off your general thoughts.
Oh no, Easton
That
does
is the
too.
point,
No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding. It's
the
fine,
point is to
though.
cut off Tristan.
Yeah,
So
that's the point of the movie Moron. Yeah, no, I don't really have anything really. Anything else?
okay. Well, the whole point of that was that you were excited for it to be short before
Yeah.
you realized
Yes.
whether or
Before-
not you
yeah,
liked it.
true.
Yeah.
And that's a plus in general, especially for this style of movie. When you get something like this
Yeah.
that's a very heavy action focused movie that kind of has some ridiculous tendencies to it, the longer you draw those out, the worse those tendencies feel.
Sure.
That's another. Nope, I'm not. I won't
Okay.
say it.
And I mean, not to go to a conversation we were talking about that's not that you guys didn't hear, but we were talking about John Wick Chapter 4
Yeah.
before we started recording, and that was both of our issues, and I think it's one of Tristan's as well, that it was just so long.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things where if it kind of keeps it under that hour and 45 for an action movie that has ridiculous qualities to it, when you draw it out, it gets to be a drag.
Yes.
In action movies, now if you have something like Gladiator, Braveheart, Last Samurai, like those aren't
like
action movies.
epics
Yes.
that are Yes.
Yes,
They have
those-
they have a different set of objectives, I think, than something like a John Wick or a
Yes,
Sisu.
much more character driven, much more historical driven. There's a lot more moving parts and historical context to everything that adds to the story. This doesn't try to add any of that.
Sure.
It's just one man versus the Nazis. So,
One man versus the Nazis.
I mean, they should have hired me for some marketing because
That's true.
Sure.
You would have got him with that line right there.
our theater needed it. There were, I think, 23 people in our theater.
I was so worried because we
Really?
got
Our-
there
wow.
late.
Our Dolby theater. I mean, so it was the big old.
Oh, it was the big one.
Yep.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
gonna say because there was maybe
Oh.
10 people
Okay.
in my theater. But
I may be exaggerating with 20. No, because there were people down below too.
Yeah.
But we were in Dolby, so there's 150 seats.
Yeah.
And
I was worried because
Yeah.
I hate going in if we're late. I hate going in late in Dolby because it gets so dark and I
Yeah.
can't find my seat and I just get panicked and I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Sure.
So I
and
was
before
like,
people would always steal our seats.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened in a long time,
we would
but
have to be like, these are our seats.
because we show up 20 minutes late. So
Yeah, is that to miss the Mountain Dew ads? And,
Yes.
Yeah.
we try our best to miss the Nicole Kidman commercial,
Yeah.
but it never happens. We always show up right before it starts.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But we don't want to push it back too much later because it's Nicole Kidman, and then it shows the
Yeah.
like the actual movie.
AMC theaters.
If I'm at Regal, I'm just dying to miss that really embarrassing like the movie quotes one.
I hate it so much.
It makes me cringe into oblivion every time.
Regal, if you're listening to this, that's probably the reason why I don't have Regal Unlimited.
It's just awful.
There are other reasons, but
you know
that's
what?
a big one.
And God bless Danny Trejo. He got paid. I'm always in favor of Danny Trejo getting paid, but
I mean, I'm all in for any actor getting their money. So
sure.
Do whatever dumb thing you have to do. Get the money. Just
but
go do something good afterwards. That's what I always like.
Yeah, sure.
Go make your Marvel money, but then go back to real acting. Don't stick with the dumb stuff. Like
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
She's
done. She said she was done with Black Widow.
She's done?
Yep.
She says, well, we'll see how much that $100 million paycheck to come back for Avengers 7 is.
Natalie Portman said that she was done in like 2013, and then they backed up a dump truck filled with money to her home. Yeah. So,
and that one was even she was like a half character in Love and Thunder. So.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so Easton,
my general thoughts. Yes, my general thoughts were I actually had a lot of fun. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. A one-man army versus Nazis, and he's just going to absolutely obliterate them in various ways. I knew it was going to be overly gory, and I was excited for that. I do think this very much leaned into the hyper unrealistic, which got a little annoying from time to time. Sure. I think they could have backed off that a little bit and still stuck with they were trying to show stoicism and like legend status. Like they're trying to show a legend.
Make him feel like a myth.
And more than a man, but you do that with stories, not with actual film. And so it was a little You tell the stories of how he survived these things, but then you show how he logistically did it in real life. Yeah. That's what you do with film, and they didn't do that. They just decided to show the legend and the unrealistic things that would happen with that. But so it's not as good as it's not as great as I thought it was going to be, but I still did have a ton of fun for a large portion of it. So. Yeah, I think that's really where I'm at. I think if it was a little bit longer, it would have been a bit much. Our character doesn't say much, and I know that that's kind of a minus for probably you, Tristan, and maybe you as well. But I actually didn't mind it because that's not what I was.
I didn't mind that part of it so much.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to, nor wanting him to. I actually think if they added really too much or any dialogue at all, it kind of would have muddied his character up. So I kind of enjoyed that, like a main character that I think had one line at the very end.
Sure.
He may have said something here and there, but that was pretty much it.
I don't know. That may have been all he says.
Yeah. And there were a couple times in my head I was like, ooh, I would want him to say a line here, but I'm like, no, this.
Yeah.
He's not a character that has the cool one-liners. Like that's for Die Hard. That's for something else. That's not what
I
this
like
is.
Die Hard.
I love Die Hard, but I didn't want him to be John McCain. I wanted him to be
John McClane.
John McClane,
not former presidential candidate John McCain.
I didn't want him to be either.
I didn't want him to be John McCain either.
Yeah. Yes, that's most of my general thoughts. I did really like the sound. I thought the set, just the open worldness of it was a nice change of pace.
Sure.
Compared
I did
to
like the opening scene, just like shows all the grass and trees and land, and I was like, look at all those beautiful colors.
This movie also does not take any time to get going.
It doesn't. I will say to kind of piggyback off of your point, the design components of this movie are incredible. I think that the texture of all the costumes, the production design, all that is wonderful. Keeping things more general, I just struggle with how that conflicts with how silly and outlandish the material is.
Yeah.
There's just, it feels like a movie with kind of an identity crisis where on one hand, it's trying to be very textured and authentic and well-researched in its design elements, and it's very serious in its performances. And then on the other hand, I'm really struggling to avoid spoilers. It's ridiculous things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
I think that's all of ours kind of biggest con.
Sure.
And it's a glaring one. And I mean, now that just talking about it, I do wonder if they were just trying to like put film to what a legend would be. Like,
Sure.
that this like
a noble effort.
Yeah.
I think that there's nothing wrong with that idea. It's just
I don't
again,
think it lands 100%.
I don't think so either.
Now, it wasn't as big of an issue with me than it was some of you guys, but it was. I do think it didn't land 100%. Do you guys know if that character is at all?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I would imagine not.
Okay.
I know that so there's several actors in the movie that the director, whose name I can't pronounce. You've made wonderful things, but I can't pronounce your name.
Jalmari Helander, something of that sort.
Yes, that gentleman. He's
Jalmari.
talented guy. I've seen Rare Exports, and I know I saw a movie called Big Game that he did years ago. I don't remember much about it, but he kind of sticks with the same stable of actors. Like the lead in Sisu is in every other movie he's made. The tank driver in Sisu, who meets kind of an unceremonious end. He's been in everything that he's made, and there are a couple other little people that are in pretty much every other thing that he's made. And this feels like writing wise, it feels right in his wheelhouse. So I'd be surprised if it's based on something actual.
Okay.
But if it is, then God bless that man.
Killing Russians and killing Nazis.
Yeah, why not?
But I mean, it's probably not. But I mean, I thought it was a cool legend. Like the backstory of the legend was cool as well. So. Okay, if we don't have too much more before we get into spoilers, just go ahead and do you recommend watching this movie? So recommendations. Most people can tell before we get to this point, but still want to say if you have any caveats or whatever, you can add those in, whether or not you recommend our audience to go watch this in theaters, wait for streaming, whatever.
I think that if you're looking for something, if you're looking for nothing more than a man that kills Nazis and in ridiculous ways, and that ridiculous things happen, then I can't imagine that you'll feel like you've wasted an afternoon. There are a lot of things that I can't really get into without getting into spoilers that just kind of triggered my my alarm bells, and I couldn't get over them. I'm excited to talk about them, but for me personally, I would say no. But if any of those things meet your criteria, then by all means.
Yeah, I would say, pro. It's short, so you're not gonna. If you don't like it, it's like
it'll be over soon.
Yeah. But like I could see my dad really liking this movie,
sure.
especially because it's short. Because he likes those action movies and. There's not a ton of dialogue. Yep. It's mostly about the action.
This is definitely a man's movie.
Yeah, this is 100% dad approved.
Yeah.
This is if you've got a dad, it's right up his alley.
Yeah.
It's got guns, bombs, bullets, punches, and
sure. There's a horse and a dog.
A horse and a dog, planes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pickaxes, tanks.
It sounds like we have such low opinions of just dads in general.
No. It's awesome.
Yeah. But
Those
if
are
you're not
awesome
a dad
things.
or you're not into those things, then no.
Yeah, I was just caveating that it definitely feels like a man's movie. This was made by and for the male audience, which is take that as you will. But
Sure.
there might be some, of course, women
There
that
were
like it.
there were
Yeah.
plenty of I don't know if you guys had this experience. There were plenty of elderly couples in my theater, and it
I
was a
don't
lot
remember.
of there was one couple in particular that was sitting in front of me that every time something gross or bloody or whatever happened, I would just see a very she clearly did not pick the movie, and she was upset with her husband for picking this one because every few minutes she would just go, oh. She would just like lean away, or she would like cover her eyes like this.
That is
at
the
one point-
most
at one
grandma move I have
at one point she like slapped him on the forearm and was like, "What is this?" Like the energy was just like, "What did you make me watch?"
Tristan closed her eyes several
funny.
times throughout this movie.
Yeah.
I did close my eyes at one point. I will admit
I love it all.
there was one gore gag that I just couldn't stomach.
I'm all for all the gore stuff. So in any movie,
You're in the
not
minority.
yeah,
sir.
not just this movie, just in general. Like I can stomach any amount of
Sure. And typically I can too. It's just every now I'll get into it when we talk about spoilers.
Sure.
There's just one particular thing that I cannot handle.
Yeah.
Like no matter how poorly it's done, it just it raises my red flag
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. So my recommendation is I do think a lot of people would have fun, but you do have to know that this is a extremely gore fest version of an action movie.
Sure.
So if you like that, then I do think you'll have fun, because that's what I do enjoy, those kind of movies, and that is I did enjoy my time watching it because of those reasons. But this is not for, I think, a lot of audiences. I thought this was going to be a little bit more in the middle, where this is going to be kind of reach not quite the John Wick level of audience, but kind of still kind of be there for most people. But it goes really over the top with some of its gore stuff.
People seem to dig it. It's getting really good reviews.
It's kind of in the middle on Letterboxd, or high
gotcha.
middle.
Okay.
Kind of sitting in between the 3 to 4 range, which is usually like enjoyable, but this is nothing special.
Sure.
Is kind of where I see that with Letterboxd. I think once you hit 4, that's when you're like, this is good to great.
Right on.
But yeah, the people are kind of enjoying it. So, okay, well, that's our recommendations. We're going to take a short little break here, and then we'll be right back for the spoiler part of the review. All right, and we're back after that short little break. Yes, that was very weird.
I know, I was waiting, Trevor.
Yell. We're back. We should have told Brandon to fill in that, but
We're back.
There you go.
now Trevor's gonna get really mad that he wasn't on because somebody stole his bit. But no, yeah, we're back. We're gonna talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen Sisu and you care at all about this movie being spoiled, go ahead and pause, watch it, and come back. This does not have the mom approval or mom recommendation that Tristan loves saying. So
Sorry, Mom.
moms across the world, just like grandmas across the world, will not enjoy this one.
When your husbands inevitably drag you to this movie, you're going to hate it.
To be fair to all the males out there, I'm sure they get dragged to some.
Sure.
Yeah, those same grandpas will definitely be going to see the book club movie
final
with
chapter.
yeah
Book
with
Club 2.
Next chapter. Hey, Tristan and I watched that in theaters. I loved it. So
book club.
yeah,
See,
so
I've never even heard of the first one.
you just want to hear about old people talking about sex for 2 hours? Boom.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well,
It's in a comedic form.
but
okay.
but are those old people Diane Keaton and or Jane Fonda? If the answer is yes, then absolutely. I'm kidding.
I don't remember the cast.
I did see
I'm sorry.
so I did see when we were at the theater, not for this movie, but this last time, I saw an elderly couple that was posing next to the big cardboard cutout
Yes.
of the book club. It was they were posing next to or I should say she was posing next to it, and he was taking her picture.
Oh my
but
gosh.
but Annie and I walked past it. Annie's my wife for listeners, but we were walking past, and she just goes, "Oh." Like, that's so cute.
People really attached to that movie, and they liked it quite a bit.
Right on.
So
That's great.
Tristan was
I
plugging her
was
ears the entire time.
not
but-
the whole time. I was excited. I actually wanted to see it. I don't know if you remember that,
No,
but I wanted to see
and
it.
I did not.
Because I'm like, right on, old ladies and your husbands.
Well, I don't know if we knew it was that much about sex.
I think we knew some.
Okay.
But then
I
it
love
like wouldn't stop.
That wouldn't have been my guess.
Yes.
Like looking at the marketing.
I know
Right,
that's
right.
Now I don't know if the second one is as much. I just
Sure.
know that first book club, like the book they were like doing for book club was a book about like having sex.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the whole thing is just centered around them reading this book about having sex. So like obviously
Sure.
they're all going to get more freaky with their
Yeah,
spouses
yeah.
and
That's
stuff.
interesting.
So yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
funny.
premise of the first
Yeah.
one. So I thought it was hilarious because it's just I mean I had a lot more fun than Tristan did with it.
Sure,
I think she got more uncomfortable with some of the stuff, which is fine. Like it's understandable. But okay, this is not a review on the original book club.
No,
but
it is not. We need to focus. Back to the Nazis.
Brandon's got a lot of notes.
I do have a lot of notes.
well, why don't you start with a piece of your notes, and then we can start it off with that.
Man, where to start? Okay, so I'm going to say one thing in particular, that I do not think this script is nearly as clever as I wish it was. Like there are so many moments where I think that part of what makes a sort of one-man army or you messed with the wrong guy kind of action movie work so well is you have a single person that is in scenarios that you don't know how they're going to get out of it. You know what I mean? And then the writers have to come up with clever ways to get them out of it. The ways that this movie finds to get him out of these problems was oftentimes very clunky and awkward and weird, and sometimes I just didn't buy it. Like there are so many times in this movie where there is absolutely zero reason why the Nazis are not actively shooting him right then. There are so many times where I stopped and I thought, why aren't they shooting him?
Yeah.
And then the only thing I could come up with is the movie can't let that happen, that the script can't let him get shot at this moment, so it's not happening. Like I think of the moment where he's getting out of the water, which that whole water set piece, I don't want to be too insulting to these people who are clearly very talented, but I had
Are you telling
genuine.
me you can't
I had
breathe
genuine
oxygen out of a
I had genuine
knife hole?
secondhand embarrassment, like during a lot of that, where I was like, "Oh God, this just doesn't make any sense." And it would be fine if it didn't make sense, but it didn't make logical sense, but it made emotional sense.
Yes.
Does that make sense? But
Yeah, it does.
how many more times can I say sense? But when he gets out of the water, there is a moment where this sort of, oafish Nazi henchman who is kind of our like right hand man to the big
He's the
bad.
sniper of the group.
Yeah, he's got a sniper rifle. He has such an opportunity to just get a clear line of sight on this guy and just take him out.
Oh, you mean
And-
when he drags the boat across, or are you talking about when he gets air?
Oh, I'm talking about, so when he gets air is one of them, but
Well,
also,
he gets shot in the head when he gets air.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess he does. But then when he gets out of the water,
Yes.
and he's got that body over him, and then he loses that body, that is a great opportunity to just take him out right then and there. But what happens is he's got an opportunity to take him out with the rifle, and instead of doing that, he inexplicably says, F this, and then he like puts the rifle on his back, and then he gets on the giant, clunky, inaccurate machine gun, and then just starts spraying everything. Like, and he misses him, because that is a nonsensical thing to do. To just like,
But-
I don't know. The problem is like the movie is filled with moments like that just didn't make sense to me,
Yes,
or to the movie itself.
yes. See, I had a different problem with that scene, and it wasn't the fact that he got on the gun. It was the fact that that body was able to just
Stand
eat those bullets.
so many bullets.
Well, it wouldn't be able to withstand one of those bullets.
Yeah.
That's the reason why he got on that is because he knew that he had a body in the sniper rifle back then, and in those times may not be able to puncture all the way through a body to
Yeah.
be able. So like,
Fair enough.
I was like, okay, like this is like if this was today, a sniper rifle would go right through that body and hit him and have an internal wound.
I just don't know enough about guns. I
Okay.
guess.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know everything, but I know a decent amount. And so I was like, okay, I can see this. But then that gun that was up there would have chewed right through that body and just tore him
Sure.
apart.
Would have, and even me, a guy that doesn't know anything about guns, I know that would have made him into mulch.
Yes.
Like there would have been nothing left. And also, that leads me to my next point, which is, why are they shooting so many giant guns that have the capacity to destroy the bag of gold that they're trying to steal from him?
Well, I
They
don't know.
fire, like I'm thinking of specifically when they fire the
cannon
cannon
fire-
at
yes.
him. Yeah.
Yes, the cannon fire is one, but it's also metal. Metals or gold is pretty durable.
Sure.
And unless you hit like it's a bunch of like small rocks of it. So I assume it would just implode it. Like there would be gold shards everywhere, but at least he's dead and you can just spend an hour picking it up. But
yeah, fair enough. That's
those were not the illogical parts in the movie that made me upset. It was the several times where they decide, like, it's a normal villain trope to when you've got the guy that you're trying to kill right in front of you, you don't take the obvious thing to go ahead and kill him. You do the thematic thing of, we're going to hang him, we're going to beat him up, we're going to do whatever to give him a chance to be able to come back because the movie wants you to do that.
Sure.
And that's not just this movie's fault. That's a historic problem in movies in general.
That's an action movie problem.
So I wasn't like dire on that, but when you have the shield scene was really rough. He's also backing up through mines and doesn't hit any, which was so that scene was one. The Gatling gun was a major one for me with the tank.
And none of these things would be problems in a movie that had a sillier tone.
Yes.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
There are things that happen in Fast and Furious and in John Wick that are just fundamentally impossible. And I accept them because the tone of the movie justifies it. That's what I meant earlier by I feel like this movie has kind of an identity crisis where the material clearly wants to be sillier than the production is letting it be. And that's part of why I have so much trouble with everybody in this movie just breaking the rules of the movie. Like up to that point, we have seen bullets, knives, all these sorts of things pass through people with ease. Like it's never been a problem before. But then it becomes a problem, or it becomes a benefit to the lead character when the movie can't let him die yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when he sets himself on fire, which don't even get me started on him making the choice to get under the truck and like, okay, actually I am going to back up a little bit. So first there's that sequence where he's running through the minefield, which there were a couple of creative beats during the minefield sequence where he throws the mine at that one guy. Yeah. I thought that was funny and clever. That was great. But then this guy who we have been told at this point, at the very least through the film language, that he is unstoppable. He is this survivor man extraordinaire. And he gets the opportunity. He gets some space. He gets away from them. And he stops at a bombed out truck on the side of the road that he knows they're traveling down. And not only does he stop, he goes to sleep.
And the tank doesn't wake him up.
No,
from far off.
Yeah, the tank doesn't wake him up. And I think that the creative payoff to that scene in a more
dogs wake him up, not a tank.
Yes, the creative payoff to that scene in a more creative, a more clever script would be that he realizes that the dogs are trying to cover his scent, and we don't go for sort of a blunt, obvious, clunky action scene where people get set on fire and machine guns are firing and all this sort of stuff. Instead, we put him in a precarious position where we haven't seen him yet, where he has to find a creative way to cover his scent from the dogs, right? He has to find a way to cover his scent and not get noticed by the Nazis. Instead, what the movie chooses to do, inexplicably, is for this genius survivor man extraordinaire to climb under their truck and puncture the gas tank so that the gas will cover the scent, and then of course they stop because one of the trucks is leaking gas. Like, why wouldn't they stop?
But and the stopping isn't even the issue. It's the fact that he just then decides to run off to the side and sprint.
Yeah.
There's no logic behind, maybe I need to crawl forward. I'll light this.
Sure.
Have a fire go off, and then maybe I have a chance to
go.
Run.
Yeah. Light a fire. Cause a distraction or something like that.
That truck may not explode into 1,000. Well, it's an action movie, so you could have had the truck explode into 1,000 pieces. It logically wouldn't, but you would at least have a ruckus that you can maybe get some foot on away. Maybe even steal a truck.
Yeah, create an opportunity. Exactly. See, Easton, now we're getting somewhere. See, create an opportunity for him to do something clever and creative, but instead, it just feels like the movie was, and I know people will say that this aren't all movies kind of made up as they go.
Yes.
No. Like not entirely. Yes, obviously they're made up by a writer.
I know what you mean.
But they're structured. They're thought out. They're thoughtful. The best movies are structured and thought out and thoughtful. And the same goes for big, dumb, clunky action movies. They also have interior logic where they've thought through all of this, but it feels like at so many points during the movie, they're just like, this happens. And then, I don't know, maybe this happens. Maybe he sets himself on fire and he goes in the water. And then it was as though somebody said, yeah, but what happens then? Like they can see him at that point. And they're like, he gets somebody and then he uses their windpipe to breathe. He cuts their throat and then uses their windpipe to breathe. And like, well, doesn't his windpipe don't the windpipe just fill with water and blood? And he's like, no. No, that doesn't happen. But this is what I mean by I feel like I'm the no fun police. I feel like I'm just like sucking the fun out of this ridiculous movie.
You can't do this.
No, these are the problems with it though.
Sure.
And especially when I think at least the first 20 minutes felt like the action and everything felt like it fit the theme.
Very earnest.
That first fight where he kills the 5 people, that felt real and it felt like it fit the tone of the movie. Where no, you don't agree?
No, go on. I was thinking something completely different.
Because it was rough, it was messy, but it was still one man versus these 5, and he found a way to overcome even though the odds weren't with him. But he wasn't and I actually feel like he's not supposed to be this smart guy. I think he's just supposed to be the guy that somehow is able to endure. He survives past his idiocracy. Maybe not idiocracy, but just like he has the willpower. I mean, they even say it. He just has the determination
to die.
Yeah, but I mean, if they just decide to shoot him in the head when they have him captured, he's going to die. But nonetheless,
sure.
Like I feel like that's his trait, not necessarily that he outsmarts everyone. That he just is like, I'm going to take the most amount of pain, and somehow my body doesn't die when there's a ginormous gash, and I just put some metal pieces into it.
Fair enough.
Like my body just somehow, it's worked for me so far, and I haven't died.
Isn't that a boring character?
Is it
though?
ridiculous?
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's ridiculous, but it feels like moving backwards. Like I feel like there was just this whole generation of action heroes, like back in the 80s and early 90s, where their whole thing was that they were unstoppable one-man armies. But then at a certain point, we realized that's kind of boring and leads to boring characters that can't really go anywhere or learn anything or experience anything. And that's a lot of pressure to put on this single movie. But what I mean is this character has nothing to him outside of the fact that he just can't die.
Yeah.
And they're just the movie, kind of claws at motivation for him, like
just the fact that he was in the war and he fought a bunch of Russians and he's obviously poor.
His home city gets destroyed. A shot that is on screen for maybe 5 seconds, if that. And
it was a dope 5 seconds.
And then, it was great. It was a beautiful shot, but then we just breeze past it. Yeah. And there is nothing in the language that tells me this is his motivation now. This is why he's determined to, persevere or defeat these Nazis or whatever. What you need is like a switcheroo or something where it becomes more personal. You know what I mean? And now we're on his side.
Like John Wick.
Yeah, exactly. Now we want to see him succeed.
Or if you had the motivation of the Jewish women, the Jewish girls. Yes. Now they obviously show up, but he doesn't have knowledge of them for a very long while. Mm-hmm. And if you could have changed the motivation of his character from just the gold to these Nazis are also raping and then are going to eventually kill these Jewish girls. But
or if you wanted to do something clever, you could set up this sort of whole one-man army premise, and then he gets to a point where he's just taken too much. He can't do it anymore. So instead, he has to arm them, and then they take out the rest of them.
You kind of get that.
Kind of. I mean, which I don't know about you. Were you kind of disappointed when that whole truck of soldiers just gets taken out in a few seconds?
I kind of liked it.
It was a great shot. I was just a little disappointed because I thought that we were setting up like a set piece, like a proper shootout, like something larger scale than we had seen. Yeah. And like I said, it looks great. It's a cool shot, but it was. I liked both. I was a little disappointed.
I liked both the look of it and the fact that of course, later we get more revenge from the Jewish girls. But at that point, that was their first moment of being themselves and doing something outside of just being enslaved, basically. So
I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more payoff to that character, though. When they kidnapped him and they had him on like, it was funny or it was entertaining or whatever when they had him hanging from the barrel of the tank. But I really wanted, I wanted two things. I hated that character. But I wanted the movie to make us hate him more with his personality. Like, we see him do bad stuff, but at a certain point, it just kind of goes, yeah, bad Nazi do bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, I understand. Like, that's kind of what the Nazis do in movies and in history.
I think it assumed that, the heavy implication that he was raping the girls was enough to make you...
And it, like I said, it got the job done, but at the same time, I think that... just sort of relying on us hating him because of things that happen off screen. Yeah. Yes, that's obviously it's effective. And I think in this case, it mostly got the job done, but I want to hate him for more than just that. Show me reasons. Show me that this guy is just like
deplorable.
He's just deplorable.
Well,
I hate him for everything about
like our
him,
main
not just,
antagonist that just like has no sense of any camaraderie with his platoon, and it's just like, you are just bodies to die for my cause. Yeah. Which is really just so like you're saying you want something more that like, because that was all on screen.
I want some difference between him and, because like you've said before, everyone in the movie is so stoic. I wanted some contrast between this guy and the sort of fearless, like emotionless leader. Sure. Like, yes, he can fulfill that role, and even you can keep him very stoic to kind of have a parallel between him and our lead character. But when everybody in the movie, with the exception of the occasional, there's a couple of Nazis soldiers here and there that for whatever reason they let be like mustache twirly and like kind of villainous. But I was like, that's fine for them, but give me that from the guy with the sniper rifle. Like, I hate him now, but like, I want to learn. It sounds like an odd gripe. Like, I want to see him do more bad things. It's not really what I mean. Like, I want to hate him more. I want the movie to justify me hating him even more.
You want the movie to earn the hate. Like, you want the character to earn the hate. Yeah, no, yes. I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah. I don't feel it as much, but I do get that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
I'll say something.
Shoot.
Pun intended. I didn't catch on to all of that gun stuff and all of that, all that stuff that you guys caught on to. But what went downhill real fast for me was when he was hanging on to the dumb airplane. I was like, you're not Dom. You're not Fast and Furious. You can't do this. You're not allowed. That was when I was kind of counting the minutes too. Yeah. That was when I was like, are you kidding me? And then he gets the tar beat out of him in the plane, and I'm like, you should for sure be dead right now.
Yeah, gunshots haven't done it. Like being set on fire didn't do it. Being nearly drowned didn't do it. But getting punched around a little bit by Axel Henny nearly tipped him over the edge. I
did like the attaching him to the bomb thing though.
Oh, that was great. Okay. Yeah. That was a good payoff. But I also didn't like that fight scene I thought it was really poorly edited. There was so much of the fight that was just really tight close-ups on their clothes or like just general movement of their body. Like, bring the camera back a little bit, show me this in a wide, let me see what they're actually doing. And because so much of it just sort of felt like general punching and kicking, which was kind of boring. And yeah, it had a great payoff, but I don't feel that the fight itself justified us getting to a point where this unstoppable killing machine was just like laying down going, ugh. Yeah. Like, I'm almost done in. And I'm like, from what? He hit you with like a little clip. Clip thing, like a little metal thing. Like, yeah, that's that's not nothing. That would definitely hurt me. But based on everything that I've seen from the movie, I'm like, this shouldn't hurt you. Yeah. Like, what is this? But anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just kind of making the same point.
It did seem like it was going to be he's taking this to find his opportunity, which it finally did.
Finally,
but it just took too long.
Yeah,
that's all it was. It was just too long of this character just beating him over and over and over again. To the payoff just took a little too long to get there.
Yeah.
Gorgeously,
another positive that I'll say. Gorgeously shot.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful looking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it had been a little bit less outlandish, I think that this would have been a really solid, gritty, earthbound
which is
movie.
sad because it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be as goofy as they made it.
Yeah.
They made a conscious, I don't think it was lazy writing or bad writing. I think they made a conscious decision that they wanted to make something outlandish.
Sure.
And so they leaned into it.
Yeah, and I have no and
the cherry on top was the plane crash.
Yeah, the tough stuff in the writing for me wasn't the fact that it was outlandish or that it was ridiculous. It's just it was more structural things. Like it felt like they didn't know where they were going, and whereas if I watch something like Fast and Furious or John Wick, yes, they're silly, they're ridiculous. Even something like like an 80s flick like Commando or like Rambo 3, like ridiculous movies. Yeah. At the very least, I'm watching them, and yes, they're ridiculous, they're outrageous, but they're written with so much confidence. You know what I mean? Like they are confidently digging their heels into whatever it is that they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you kind of expect it from
Sure.
From like those type of movies. I was not expecting it in this at all.
Yeah.
I was expecting the gore. I was not expecting the unrealistic actions that continued to happen. It wasn't just one either. Yeah. The real turning point for me was the plane crash. That's the one thing that I thought was like, okay, you just went too far.
Where you mean where the plane like evaporates into the ground? It hits it so hard, so there's
and he like buckles himself in. I was like, what are you gonna do?
I don't know if they were trying to make like a Pentagon joke or something, but yeah, it was dumb.
I don't know. I also just found that there were so many strange decisions in the lead up to that. Like the pilot gets shot in the neck because they needed the
plane to go down.
They needed the plane to go down. But the fact that their justification for the pilot continuing to fly the plane was that it would have been, honestly, it would have been a more interesting fight scene if it happened in a falling plane.
Yeah, you could have got like an Inception style fight where they're fighting around that.
Yeah.
And that fits the tone just well.
Yeah, it would at that point.
You just wouldn't have had the bomb falling, which I think they wanted the.
Yeah, I know that they wanted that, but that's another thing where I was watching the movie and that random cutaway to there being a bomb on the plane. I was like, why is there a bomb on this passenger plane?
Yes.
but there's, and also it's clearly for a purpose because it's painted and it's decorated and decorated. I don't know that they would call it the Nazis would say that they were decorating it, but
some people decorate eggs on Easter, and some Nazis decorate bombs.
Nazis decorate bombs. Sure, they do other stuff too, but that's less funny. But like it would have been great to just have some kind of fight scene with the plane falling. That would have been great. But their justification to keep that pilot who had been shot in the throat on the plane was that the Nazi captain, those with him are big bad, just goes like, he says something to the effect of like, keep flying, you idiot. Like, it's just like that kind of moment. And then he just does. Yeah. Like he just ignores the fact that there is a bullet in his neck. Yeah. And he's like, whatever you say, boss. Like, let's just keep flying the plane as I'm actively dying.
And not to mention, apparently if a pilot stops piloting a plane, your engines just blow up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
I forgot about that.
Nothing happened for the plane to go down. Yeah, the pilot just died, and he went to the driver's seat, and then both engines
that right wing engine just blows up for no reason.
And then it's just like nose dives. And I'm like, he can't. I was like, well, he could just fly the plane. He'll land it. Bada boom, bada bang. We got to our ending.
Well, I thought that's what we were setting up. Yeah. Was like a tense plane landing where where he tries to land.
Episode 3.
I don't know why they didn't try that.
It would have been better
because I'm like, there's no way you've lived this much life and survived these many this much stuff, and you don't know how to like navigate to an extent.
Well, he did. He flew the other plane.
Well, I thought
he knows how to fly planes.
I thought that he was going to, when he was looking around and he was just grabbing things, I thought, oh, okay, we're going to do sort of, again, going to that sort of survivalist idea. All right, he's going to fashion a parachute somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, we're going to do something creative. We're going to do something clever. I was clinging at this point. I was like, we have to do something. But instead, it was just the plane crashing, and I will never get over the fact that there is just not a morsel of that plane left on the ground. It just like
what was there
disintegrated.
Yeah, was there like I mean, there's no justification, but it seemed like their justification was like this is like muddy water, and so like it just it sinks completely into the ground because it's just mud water.
Yeah, that's as good a justification as any, I guess.
And so that's why he survived too, because it was like a softer landing because. Yeah. It's
there's no earth under that mud. It's
a mile
mud.
It's a mile of mud water, and he was able to dig out of it too.
Yeah. Strong man.
And if there's one thing that we know about water, it doesn't matter how fast you hit it; it's always soft. It's always water.
And he's
I
like
don't know.
65 years
honestly,
old.
by
the
that
plane
point,
broke the fall. Okay.
Yeah, by that point. I was like, I don't know, this might as well happen. You know what I mean? Like this, by that point, I was like, this movie lost me a while ago, but this is not I don't know. I buy this material. At this point, I was like, okay, he crashes the plane. He gets out of the crashed plane. Yeah. Whatever. By that point, I was like, it's fine. But there was just so much. And I'm going to reiterate one more time. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I have no problem with silly things. They just have to follow every movie. There's no such thing as reality in movies. Every movie is its own reality. But that reality has to have consistent rules. You have to follow those rules consistently. And this movie just kept establishing them and then forgetting them, and then establishing them and then forgetting them over and over and over again. It just was so frustrating to watch. Yeah. This harmless movie just infuriated me so much.
Yeah, I've had that same exact conversation with people about canon. Like that's the point. They're like, well, it doesn't matter. Anything can happen. It's like, well, canon is set because like every movie has its own set of reality, and once it sets it, like that's its canon, and you're supposed to go off of that. Like it does it work like our world and our reality? No, but it's setting its own canon. You're supposed to live off of that, and when you break that canon, it's upsetting as a viewer. Yeah, and that's
sure
kind of what.
Yeah, it's the same for any series of movies. So a great example of this that people might be familiar with is Die Hard. We establish, all right, this guy's not quite a tank. He's not quite a one-man army. He gets beaten up. He experiences real pain. He's a real vulnerable guy, but at the same time, we're going to see him do some silly stuff. He's going to jump off the roof of the building, and we're going to justify it in the way that movie can. And then you fast forward to the fourth movie or the fifth movie where he's jumping off of moving vehicles, or he's surviving nuclear radiation, or he's there's a giant plane explosion inches from him, but he's completely fine, and all that sort of stuff. That is a great example of an action movie that had established rules at a certain point and kept those rules for 3 movies and then just broke them. Yeah. So
and that's also a problem with just franchises, because you have to keep topping and getting more and more,
Fast and Furious.
Yeah. But at the very least, okay, I'm actually going to say Fast and Furious is the only franchise where I'm okay with it breaking its own rules, because the 5th one was just so good that but it was so good.
It just reset its rules at 5. Yes. Because it was one thing for 1 through 4, and it decided to reestablish its own reality in 5, and then it's that from there on.
Which typically would bother me, but it was just so ballsy. it was just so, and yeah, the 4th one was ridiculous, but but the 5th one is just like people crashing through brick and winding up spotless. And like by that point, I was just like, all right, I see where we're going, and I want more of this. And they've given us many more movies of that, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. The next one's coming out this month.
Yep, comes out May 19th.
Cannot.
Your birthday?
That's not my birthday.
Your birthday's the 18th, but that's your birthday weekend.
Yes. Well, do you have any more notes that you had that you need to?
You know what? I feel like we've covered it all, and I'm gonna sound like even more of a stick in the mud if I keep. Oh, I'm wrong. We haven't covered this, and this isn't a gripe about the movie. I did think one little clever bit that it had was when the dog didn't die. Because I think on a meta level, the movie knows in a post-John Wick world, we are expecting that dog to die, and it didn't, which we got a lovely little payoff to that when he's driving the motorcycle with the little machine gun sidecar. And the dog is sitting in it. I did think that made me smile.
That also means that he walked all the way back to that motorcycle, by the way.
No, that motorcycle found him.
Probably. Oh yeah.
There was something else I was gonna say, but you know what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You got one last thing before we do?
I did, but I forgot
ratings?
it.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll.
I remember. Sorry.
I just had to lull long enough. Go ahead.
Yeah, you did. I do. I think someone said this earlier, but I really wish there was more like storytelling or something explaining this, because if this is supposed to be like he's this myth, legend, whatever, and the girl in the cart like kind of said that,
sure,
but that just wasn't enough for me, and like I feel like he needs a reason to be able to handle all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't one. It was just like he's some old guy who,
like, if they had somehow set up that he like was like this like maybe a demon or an angel that was sent down to be like this eraser of like fascist or whatever.
Yeah,
like
something
that.
tragic in his life happened. And,
or like
whatever.
You know what would have been. Honestly, what would have been more fun would have been like a bait and switch. So the idea of there's just this fantastical lore set up around him, and maybe what we learn over the course of the movie is that he's just really smart or really lucky. You know what I mean? That like there's been this sort of aura built up around him that he's unstoppable, he's unkillable, and then you have like a quiet moment where he should talk, where he talks and he says, well, you know, I've never understood that sort of all those stories that people say about me. I'm not that guy, or something like that.
Yeah.
Something clever. You know what I mean? Some sort of something.
We need something.
Yeah.
Do something, please.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about headcanon. I think my headcanon for this is that this is just supposed to be a film version of what a legend is. So like this is a film embodiment of somebody telling the story of how this person saved these 4 or 5 or 6 Jewish girls from these Nazis, and how he had a bunch of this gold or whatever.
That's kind of how George Miller has described Mad Max in the past. He's called Mad Max a campfire tale, and that's why all the movies are so disparate and different.
Gotcha.
As he says, oh well, these are just stories that people have attributed to Max, which is an interesting idea, and you can do something interesting with that, but all of those movies have a tone that matches the material.
Yes.
It's very big and crazy and weird and
I'm just saying that's the only thing I can attribute to how crazy they got is that that's maybe the point that they're going, but they obviously didn't do a well enough job communicating that's what they were doing.
Sure.
And that's, they have to create some sort of reason on why he's surviving these things, and if you make it, showing that like we're actively telling the story of this legend, then it might make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe like more. A framing device where people are telling the story, like the girls that were saved from the truck are like telling the story around a campfire or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you guys have? Are you guys ready for ratings, or got one last thing you want to throw in there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
All right, Brandon. What's your rating for Sisu? We usually do out of 5 stars.
I can't justifiably give it anything lower than like a 2.5, like middle of the road, because I think that the people who want what this movie is serving up will enjoy it.
Okay.
So
2.5.
As soon as I left the theater, I was thinking about this because I knew I had to come up with. I always forget about it, and then he's like ratings, and I'm like,
And she just throws a number out there.
Yeah. So I was thinking too. But because my little brain did not, think that they were doing these nonsensical things on purpose. Like I was just like, this is stupid. Why isn't he dead yet? But if it's on purpose, I'll probably give it a 2.5.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm at a 3.5. Like I said, I still had a lot of enjoyment of it. Yeah, and I'm really just trying to not think about the plane crash. That's the thing that did it over for me.
Yeah.
All the other stuff,
you and me both, man.
yeah. All the other stuff was like, this is over the top, unrealistic and ridiculous. But like, it's at least been consistent with how unrealistic he is. But I was like, that was just too far.
Yeah.
Because the headshot was the first thing when he got shot in the head, getting water.
There's no payoff to that, is there? Like we don't see his head like scarred or anything.
So yes,
or
we
like
do.
We do.
Yes. So so at first I was like, okay, I'm out. You can get shot, you can get stabbed, you can go through all this stuff, and like technically your body can go through, but he got shot in the head with a sniper rifle. I'm sorry that's not survivable.
Mm-hmm.
So this is ridiculous.
Sure.
But later on, it does show the bullet grazed his skull.
Okay.
So it wasn't a direct
remember
hit. Yeah, you see on his left side. Yeah, his left side.
Mm-hmm.
You see like white where his skull would be. So it just.
Oh, is that after he comes down after the hanging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just after all of that, you kind of see some more close-ups, and you see like skin removed from his head, and you see a white spot where his skull is. Like, okay, that actually is possible to get grazed by a bullet in the head and survive. That's not actually that's not impossible.
Yeah.
Unlikely, yes, but
Yes.
not impossible. And like that was an insanely difficult shot to hit. Where he gets like a breath of water and then goes right back down.
Yeah.
A sniper hitting that shot is not like, that's a very hard shot. So I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense that he doesn't get a direct hit in the middle of the forehead. That would be more unrealistic than a graze on the head. But anyways, yeah, so 3.5 is where I'm sitting. You did say something on the spoiler free, the general thoughts that I want to get right before we wrap up. You said that there was something gore-wise that was too much. My two guesses were either the horse or the
Didn't have a problem with the horse.
okay, or the pole in his side.
No.
Okay,
So
that was what Tristan got.
Actually,
that was too far for
rough.
her.
That was rough. I'll grant you that was rough. It's something really specific that I just can't do in movies in general, and it's like self surgeries. It's when he pops the bullet out.
Yeah.
I think it was in his leg.
Yes.
Or no. It was I think he got
Well, he popped him one out of his leg, and then he had a large gash in his side.
Yes, and it was that whole scene where he like grabs the dirt and he puts it in his wound, and I've seen worse things in movies. I've tolerated much worse things in movies. There's just something about like photorealistic wound care that I like can't do.
Yeah.
I can't do it. It's so gross.
After seeing that scene, I was definitely going back to my Oregon Trail ways, and I was like, he's dying of dysentery.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. If he's died of dysentery once, he's died of dysentery God knows how many times. If a plane crash, that's the funniest ending possible to this movie, is that like he survives all of this, but then like that wound in his side, that's what does him in. Yeah. That would be great. That
was also a ginormous gash in your side.
Yes.
That then, I mean, if you survive the plane crash and you're crawling through mud, you now have mud parasites all in your open wound. Yeah.
That's so gross.
That's so gross.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to remember what that was.
Yeah.
Because the two that the horse was a little much for you because it lingered on it.
It did.
Yes.
It did. Weirdly, I don't know what it is about like animals and stuff like that. I looked at that and I was like, and it's not even that it looked bad. It looked very good.
Yeah, it did.
But I was like, effects wise, but I was like, I was just like, no, that's a rubber horse. You know what I mean? Or I was like, that's a silicone horse, or that's like, or something like that. Like there's something about with animals, my mind can like separate.
But with humans, you can't.
But with like, when it's that intimate and detailed, and we linger on it so much, I just go, that's real.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely real.
The actor did in fact get shot. And
There's
ripped
something
the
about
bullet out.
something about my lizard brain that goes like, the other stuff is fake, but
this is real.
that looks real.
They are method actors. They're doing it out here. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Brandon, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sisu. Next week, I believe, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So we'll see what happens. I think at this point we're pretty much labeled the Marvel Cinematic haters. So
okay,
we'll see how we do.
I'm excited. I like the previous two.
I like one of those.
Okay. All right. We don't have to get into it at the end of the podcast.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. That's what we'll be doing next week. So be looking out for that. And you guys have a good rest of your week. Bye, guys.
Hey, moron!
You talking to me? You talking to me?
And there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Hello?
What an idiot!
Well, what do you expect? I'm the movie moron.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Don't call me stupid.
Oh, right! To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people! I've known sheep that could outwit you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
No, none taken.